Is Andre Tourigny the greatest coach in Coyotes history? I sure hope so because he's going to be sticking around for 3 more seasons.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, your number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes. I am your host, Robyn alongside Matthew Jacobson. Today's episode brought to you by Birddogs. Just head over to birddogs.com, slide Locked On NHL, and the promo code Locked On NHL for a free white tech cap every order. You will not want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. We're back on today's episode to discuss some Andrew Tourigny because he got his contract extension, Matthew. And, for one thing, I feel pretty excited.
Yeah, I am happy they got this done. And I've said it before, and I want to say it again and possibly again, and maybe just one more time. Andre Tourigny is kind of a Chad. Because this dude absolutely could have justified signing that contract earlier. Per Craig Morgan, this at the very least was in some way, shape, or form good to go as of a couple of weeks ago, but he didn't want to sign until the rest of his coaching staff got taken care of as well. And that is something I can respect because this coaching staff has gotten every ounce of value it possibly can out of this team, these rosters. The couple years in the rebuild, obviously both years in the Central, I finished last, and then second to last. We are moving up in the world, but you squeezed 25 wins out of a team that probably should have been nowhere near there. And technically, while it was a shortened season before, it's one win more than the season prior, where they were supposed to be still sniffing around the playoffs. And last year, they were just shy of 30 wins. They jumped up another 13 points to 70. And the amount of career years and consistent play and 20-goal scores where we saw, I think it was out of the 4 years that Coach Talkett was here, we had 20-goal scores. We had Clayton Keller, well, I want to say it was his rookie season. Phil Kessel, I think his last season here. And I'm blanking. I am hardcore blanking the third, but it was a total of 3. Connor Garland, there you go. Andre Tourigny has had 3 a year for 2 years in a row. And I think they're the exact same. Keller, Schmaltzy, and Lawson Krause. It's obviously that's just a one small little stat, one small little, hey, maybe this guy knows how to handle offense or get the best offensive performance out of his players. Only one aspect of the game, and the assistant coaches also have to have a hand in that as well. But just to see the excitement level and how much more entertaining the offense is and how much more consistent it's been, I think all of that has to be attributed in some way, shape, or form to Andre Tourigny, and I cannot say enough good things about this man.
I mean, look, the big thing that the Coyotes wanted when it came to getting their next head coach, at the time when they decided to split ways with Rick Tocchet, was look, we want to be able to find a coach who will be able to help develop the young guys. Because if we're doing a rebuild, we want to be able to build the young guys and to make them ready, for the NHL. Yeah, sure, you could have recycled your same, crusty old white man every time, but at that point, you have these coaching vets who've been around and they kind of really know how to work with more veterans rather than younger guys. What are you gonna get out of it? Not much. I really like that when they first hired Tourigny, that they went outside of the box a little bit. They're like, hey, we're gonna hire this guy straight out of juniors. We're gonna hire him out of the Ottawa 67s, and he has not disappointed at all. I mean, again, he really has helped develop a lot of guys to help have breakout years and better years than they've ever had in the past.
Yeah, and he managed to win pretty consistently. Just looking over his time as a head coach just in the QMJHL from 03-04 to 2012-2013 before he got a couple, cups of coffee, a few seasons being an assistant coach elsewhere. They only missed the playoffs. The Huskies, he's head coach all those seasons. He only missed the playoffs once, and they went to the finals one time. Goes back to the Q for one more season with the Halifax Mooseheads, still makes the playoffs, but losing the first round. The Ottawa 67s, 3 years, make the playoffs 2 of the 3 years. I think the playoffs were canceled in 2019, 2020, or else it would have been all 3 of those years. They also went to the finals, and then he comes to Arizona, and I will concede that most of 2 seasons ago, the first official year of this rebuild was memes. It was mostly memes, a little bit of cope, right? That they weren't they weren't anywhere near a good team. They had a couple solid players and a lot of older vets and reclamation projects. And he's managed to get everything out of all of these players, including you got a little bit squeezing the blood out of the rock that was Louis Eriksson. You were able to get production out of Gostisbehere, completely rejuvenating his career and getting more value out of him, obviously from GM Bill Armstrong's side with getting him moved on a trade. We're never going to forget first line center Travis Boyd. We're not going to forget Nick Bukestad going from a solid middle to bottom sixer to literally this guy is the top 6 anchor. And I don't know how the hell this works. And it just does. It just do. Because that's his culture. And when you listen to his players talk, all right, and this is not even like me getting to hear small bits of conversations. This is exclusively interviews. All right, Victor Soderstrom after the trade deadline, they're talking about how again the team was kind of tore down and they did need to kind of rally, and the team and the culture they created helped them to rally and have too good of a second half of the season, quite frankly, because of what they've managed to do here under Coach Andrew Tourigny and General Manager Bill Armstrong. I got nothing but respect, and this is the guy that I genuinely feel could win a cup here because obviously every coach has a shelf life. All right. Coach Andrew Tourigny just starting off his NHL career. Realistically, he's not one of the greats yet. He might never be one of the greats. But from this point on, he's always going to be someone that I respect the hell out of, kind of like Dave Tippett coming in, being the perfect coach for the situation. They had kind of like that ragtag team, a lot of veterans. This was a very young team, and he's phenomenal with younger players and getting the best out of them. And if they keep building and going in the right direction and his messaging stays consistent and it's still bought in the locker room, I apologize. I'm going a little over on time here. I genuinely feel like he could be a Stanley Cup winning coach here. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for the work that Coach Bear has done here. And I am ecstatic. He's going to be here for 3 more years.
Absolutely. And we'll continue to talk about the Coyotes signing Andrew Tourigny to an extension in just a little bit. But first, we do need to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors on the show. And today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Tired of sacrificing comfort for style when it comes to your activewear? Introducing Birddogs, the game changer in athletic shorts. Picture this: premium shorts designed for maximum performance combined with unparalleled comfort. Birddogs are here to revolutionize your routine with the unique built-in liner. These shorts offer the ultimate support and flexibility, ensuring you stay comfortable even during the most intense workouts. And here's the best part: Birddogs are more than just workout gear. They're versatile enough to take you from the gym to the street without skipping a beat. Designed with pockets that actually work, Birddogs give you ample space to store your essentials while you're on the move. Birddogs are made with premium breathable fabric that keep you cool and dry throughout all your activities. Perfect for the trails, the gym, or simply just lounging around. Birddogs are the shorts that you have been searching for. Order your pair of Birddogs today and join the thousands of satisfied customers who have made the switch. Visit birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL and enter the promo code LockedOnNHL to get a free white tech hat with every order. Birddogs, where style meets comfort, performance meets perfection. You won't want to take these shorts off. We promise you. All right,
I
Matt,
never take my shorts off.
Let's keep going, Matt. I want to kind of retouch on a bit that you kind of just said earlier, and it's just the respect for Andrew Tourigny and essentially like the report of him signing a contract extension kind of getting close was there like earlier this summer, but we did like they did not want to finalize the deal until he knew that he was able to ink extensions for his assistant staff. Like that is huge. I mean, like, look, you really want to be able, he really wanted to make sure, one, that they're taken care of, and two, that, you know, he still gets his guys.
Yeah, he gets the guys he wants, the people that he surrounded himself with that have helped lead to the small bits of success we're seeing. Because they're back-to-back losing seasons. We're not trying to pretend that he's already won us a cup or anything. But when you look at the expectations, when you look at the talent available, when you look at the fact that this team should not have competed the way they did in certain aspects over the last couple of years, when you look at certain players, Barrett Hayton looked kind of dead to rights offensively at the start of last season. And I think it was a 35 game stretch, and it was a completely different player down the stretch. We've had players like even Victor Soderstrom start to show smaller improvements. Obviously, that's coming more so from within the system, but I do feel like defensively he was getting a little bit better at the NHL level. So many individual things coming together as a result of this coaching staff, and to have a leader, this honestly speaks volumes of his character, by the way, to have a leader that could have just cashed in himself and been like, yeah, maybe we'll get my assistants, taken care of. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just replace them. He could have done that 100%. And honestly, even I wouldn't have blamed him, because sometimes the people that are around as your assistants don't have that much of an impact, or they are replaceable. That is a thing that is a realistic scenario. But here, it doesn't feel like that necessarily, and he wants his people and didn't want to sign until that was secured. And while we're still waiting on the official announcements, John Gabodoro did add further context that those extensions are essentially right around the corner. And I respect the hell out of this man for that, because he could have just cashed in, chose not to. We need character like him in this organization, and I am grateful to have people like Andrew Tourigny in this organization.
Oh, absolutely. And I think especially too, since like maybe like one or two of the assistant coaches are probably left over from the previous regime. I think, if anything,
I think there's at least one.
Because
they did do a pretty clean house.
I think it's Corey Schwab. I think is the only one, the goaltending coach, the only one who stuck around.
Who does a great job, by the way. We can't draft goalies to save our lives, but we can develop them.
Exactly. but Duhamel was brought in. I think he was an assistant with Tourigny with the 67s. John Madden was brought in with just his experience as a great, special teams coach. I think that's what he did for. I can't remember who he was with last. I know he was San Jose for a little bit. I can't remember. He kind of moved around a lot, but he had a pretty decent decent background on there. And then trying to think. Oh, Blaine Forsythe. I think he's like also one of the top assistant coaches in the league right now. So I'm glad they was able to get all that taken care of. And Forsythe, I think, was signed over this offseason, so I think that was a little bit different. But it was the other guys that they're getting their extensions. I just love it.
Yeah, because like I said, it shows character. It shows that while he could have justified it, he could have done it. He's like, yeah, no, I want to take care of my people. I want to make sure that I have the people I want here to succeed. I am not going to essentially pretend he's bigger than he is in the context of it's all him, which it could be 99% him. All right. I don't want to sit there and try to pretend that he doesn't have this massive impact in the locker room, but also the kind of people he wants to bring in and has brought in has obviously helped and made that impact. And the fact that, again, loyalty, that's something I respect. If you're loyal to your people and they're good people, all right, they do good, solid work as these people have done, I have nothing but respect for you.
100%. All right, Matt, one thing that I want to do too, just to kind of like get an idea of the Andrew Tourigny era versus, the last couple, in terms of like maybe like putting up against, and again, it's only been two full seasons under the Tourigny era, but we can still do a little bit of comparisons to see how we feel about, since let's say the previous three coaches. We all know that the Gretzky era was a disaster.
We don't talk about that era here.
You don't talk about that.
We do not discuss he who must not be named. And literally because of how terrible of a coach and from my perspective, how bad of a person Wayne was behind the scenes. From my own perspective, I'm not in the in-group, so obviously hockey people are going to have a different opinion there. I literally can't stand the Great One and can't even respect his on-ice talent. Just for context of how bad and toxic that entire situation was, again, from my perspective, not speaking on anyone else.
He coached the latter half of the Yachts, and he had a 4.73 coaching record. Like,
I don't
less
know.
than 500.
The teams he had could have and should have been better. Now, they were not designed to be cup teams or anything. They weren't, but I was going back through doing the notes, the game notes, and even like 06-07, which was a notoriously bad year. It wasn't like a bottom 5 year or anything, but it was still a pretty bad year, and they were out of the playoffs relatively early. They started off pretty hot, and if it wasn't for a couple of injuries, and in my opinion, just poor coaching, I feel like that team probably should have been a little better. Not quite playoffs, but not where they were. I'm just saying that's an era I don't like because whatever was there was Peter Mueller, who had all the potential in the world, and Kyle Turris essentially being told to be what they're not, and then one of them was just never the same after an incident at center ice, and the other one only became a really good NHLer. Everywhere else he went, that was not Phoenix. So I'm mad. I got a lot of pent-up aggression on that era. I don't want to talk about that era.
All right. Let's go and draw to what many will believe like the, one of the good coaches in the Coyotes history in Dave Tippett. I mean, Dave Tippett got the Coyotes to the playoffs a couple times, got Jack Adams trophy.
3 years in a row, we got playoffs, and it was the bankruptcy year. He got us in the playoffs when we didn't have an owner. He got us in the playoffs when we were running a shoestring budget that makes my operation back here look like it is properly funded. Let's frame this correctly. That man took a roster that theoretically had no damn business being as good as it was. It was a decent roster, and they made improvements, and it ended up being a good roster, and then a borderline great roster that just did not... I'm not going to get into the conspiracies right now. It just didn't happen, and that's it. Going to leave that there. All right, but what this man did with mostly veteran players that knew their roles. You had some younger guys, but they were guys that knew what their role was on the team. He was the perfect coach at the perfect time to have a Vegas effect before Vegas was ever a thing, in the context of here's some people, some misfits that really shouldn't fit together, that gives 3 straight years of playoffs and a conference finals run that, in my opinion, should have been a cup run. I will stand by that to the day I die. That should have been a cup run, and the Coyotes should have had their names etched in history. But then things happen, and we finally get ownership, and they're cheap because they don't have any money. So you don't bring back certain players that could have kept you competitive, but then you want to pretend you're competitive. He was set up to fail, and he succeeded for years until it just wasn't there anymore. And I've never seen him as being good with young talent. So it made sense while they were trying to get the young talent in the roster. It just didn't work under his system. But it still, at least in my opinion, was better than the next era. Better than the next coach.
With the Rick Tocchet era, which I don't even... The Rick Tocchet era just kind of angers me sometimes. Because the Rick Tocchet era, Matt, I think almost every year, the Rick Tocchet era is a team that slowly gets better and looks like they in preseason looks like they could be poised to make the playoffs. Not to make a run, but to make the playoffs.
to make
be
the
there.
dance.
But they don't. Every darn year, they don't. They did get lucky with the freaking COVID year when they got, the bubble. But do we all count that?
I do. They had to win a series to make the playoffs. I count it because of that. If they would have lost, I think it was a 5-game series, or it was either a 2 or 3 or 5-game series. I forget for the qualifiers. If they would have lost that, I wouldn't have counted it. But because they had to win a series, I think it was a 5-game series, so they win in 4 or something. That's why I count it, because they had to win that series to earn the playoff spot. But then they died. All right. And even like Tyson Nash, I have some criticisms of Tyson Nash, but I will not disagree on this. But he's like, it feels like this team doesn't think that they should be here. Paraphrase, obviously, this is a few years ago. It's off the top of my head, but he's talking about how uncomfortable and stiff they looked. You cannot tell me that is all on the players. Partially because if you know me, here's a refresher. Anytime things are going wrong or right, it is usually about equal percentage coaching, player performance, and general managing and roster construction. All right.
Yep.
All of them have to be together to make it work. So John Chaika at least put together a decent roster. That was a good overall team.
Which, by the way,
just felt never hit.
How much stock do you
peak.
put into Chaika quitting before the playoff even happened? Like,
I think it was kind of the beginning of the end in a way, because like everything started to really fall apart around then. And while Chaika was definitely a right-hand man there, this is not the Chaika conversation, but talk it. Offensively oppressive coach. And the fact that that's why I bring up the 20-goal scorer stat, because he had 3 and 4 years. Watching that team from 2018, 2019 until his last season, it boiled my blood, because every single time that team would get together, they'd get it together. 2019, I just like they're doing well in spite of Talkit. And I would talk to Coyotes fans and read, tweets and opinions, because you should be open to other people's opinions. And it's like, oh, he should win Coach of the Year. One person legitimately told me with a straight face, if only he had Colorado's or Vegas's roster, which for context, regular season were both top 5 rosters in the league, if not top 3. Those years, that's how good they were.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Regular season. All right. And my thing was, so he needs a top 5 roster to be a good coach. That blew me away. The loyalty to Antiranta.
Right? I mean, it's just like, a lot of different things annoyed me out of the rec talk there. And one thing I like making jokes of it at the time, but now that I look back, I realized how terrible it was. And that's, the creation of the so-called short leash line. Like, you're publicly calling them the short leash line, like, at that point. They said they're on a short leash, and then it sticks as a line name. And it annoys me because, like, all right, these 3 players, I think, Keller, Krause, and Garland. Like,
no, I'm pretty sure it was Keller, Schmaltz, and Garland.
Keller, Schmaltz, and Garland. Yeah, it was Keller, Schmaltz, and Garland. That's correct.
That was when Schmaltz was still a center.
Yeah, and they were talking. He was talking about, like, if they're calling the short leash line, essentially you're like, all right, these players, they're just like, yep, they're on a thin line here. If they don't do well, we're gonna bench them, or we're gonna do something, break them up. Like, you don't threaten stuff like that. Like, that's what's. I mean, sometimes it works, yeah, but like, if you were gonna make that public, like,
internal conversations are different.
Yes.
Internally, completely, like that's how it should be. Like, hey, we noticed the offensive potential, but Connor Garland was a feisty player, not the greatest defensively. He's okay, maybe lower mediocre. Nick Schmaltz, I've never viewed very highly as a good two-way player. He's fine. And then Clayton Keller at that time was still god-awful in his two-way game. It was a very kind of one-dimensional game he had at the time. So I understand the concept, but like, why would you make that the meme? That the loyalty to Ranta, an injured goaltender, when Darts. I remember this conference. I was working guest services. I remember I was watching the game. Ronto was sucking that night, and he dealt with a lot of injuries. But the problem is he shouldn't have been playing as much as he was. And I'm like, well, they should give Kemper a chance. And so, they'll only go as far as Ronto will take them. Kemper was the reason we got a game against Colorado. Kemper was the reason that we were anywhere near the playoffs. Darcy Kemper was him. Do we forget that?
Another grind that reminds me, another grind that you totally reminded me about Rick Tocchet is like you would run Darcy Kemper dry until he gets injured. And it's like, all right, now it's time for Anthony Ronto. You would run him dry until he gets injured. It's like, all right, now it's time for Aiden Hill. Play him for 10 games straight during a really tough run before you even decide to put an Ivan Prosvetov. And I'm just like, what are you doing, my dude?
How effing hard is it to just, hey, here's your starter, you get 2 or 3 games, the backup gets 1, and do it that way. I understand the concept of riding the hot hand, especially down the stretch for a playoff run. I get it. They did it too much with Kemper. It was 23 games in a row, and the only reason he got the last game off of the season after they were eliminated. So they were already eliminated, and still he was going to be listed as a starter. Kemper said, hey, why don't we give Calvin Pickard the start, which is a very nice gesture, but also maybe Kemper's knees were giving out and he should be allowed to take a night. Like, and then a rookie goalie, 10, 11, whatever it was, straight games, he started off really hot. And when he started to cool off, instead of, okay, you're getting 1 night off, we're going to give you 1. Hey, Prosy gets a game. It could be Calvin Pickard. I don't know if I remember if he was on the roster at that time or not. He was a later addition. Doesn't matter. Hey, the backup, you're getting 1 game. Aiden, cool off. We're going to bring you in for the next game. You're not getting thrown out. We're just trying to keep the workload balance. He didn't do that. And this stupid mindset within the fan base was, oh, well, it's up to the players to play. Same with injuries, which I need to bite my tongue so I don't curse on this show. But it's like he let players play injured. Like Derek Stepan playing with a knee brace, essentially talking about how he's kind of playing with his knee floating, essentially. And it's like, oh, it's the player's decision. No, it's not. It is the coach's decision on who is in the roster. And the fact that dude was so incompetent, did not care about the health and safety of his players, and was more like focused on trying to get a couple of wins that this team was not going to get with how injured they were in 2018, 2019. But no, screw it. Well, let's potentially ruin the players down the line, potentially ruin next season for a couple of wins they didn't even get that year. And you lost the locker room, and we're saying that's a good thing. It's a good thing that the players theoretically are like, yeah, I'm just gonna play. Yeah, my knee, I can't move it. I'm gonna play anyway. Like, take the mic away from me. I can't.
No,
I can't
you're
think
right.
about it.
You're right. It's just the player management was absolutely atrocious under Rick Tocchet. He made some good decisions, but for the most part, it was just a disaster. So when Andrew Tourigny came in, and I was going to try to bring it back to him, it was just a breath of fresh air. The fact that he kind of focused on development, focused on actually making the right decisions. The one grind I do have for Andrew Tourigny, and you're going to agree with me on this, as I showed with last year, is 11-7. Running the damn 11-7.
Yep. To be fair, we had more defensemen than we needed last year. I get it. This year it's evened out a bit more, but yes, the 11-7 needs to die. And the fact that it was successful for small stretches, I will give it that. I hate that the narrative started that is the 11-7 the new cheat code. That's how you're gonna win. No, it's not. It's taxing on your players. It's kind of like what is it, the 1-3-1, the 1-3-1 system, where like it's super taxing on 1/3 of your players.
Yeah, no, that's and that's the interesting thing is, as of right now, that's the only grind that I have with Tourigny. And again, it's not even that bad because again, you understood it for that situation it was this last season. I'm hoping we don't
didn't
see
do
it
the
this
year
year.
Before. It was only last year. It wasn't the year before, but it brought in all the too many men on the ice penalties. Because I wasn't sure if you were going to bring that up. I just wanted to throw that in there. A lot of too many men on the ice penalties.
Yeah, a lot of weird bench penalties because of that. It happened. It was annoying.
Still love you, Bear. But that's your one. That's your one. We can joke about your one thing that frustrates me because it's like occasional. You saw me rant about 2/3 of the other coaches.
And that just shows you how much praise that we have for Andrew Tourigny. And I think that we're excited that he's got another 3 years, which should take the Coyotes through some pretty good years, as they're trying to emerge from this rebuild.
Are we going to see our first 500 season as soon as this year? I think it's possible.
It is
not
possible.
saying they will,
yeah.
But it's possible. They could be around 500 this year. They could. But like Steve Peters said, like the jumps get harder the higher up you want to get in the standings. So it's like, I'll be interested.
Yeah,
but I think
the
they could
Central
be
Division is a little
NHL
bit
500.
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit tougher in the Central Division, with the exception of Chicago. Chicago is going to be, in the absolute gutters.
No, they're going to win the cup this year, Robyn. Chicago's gonna. They got former MVP Taylor Hall to partner with Connor Bedard. You're not gonna stop that line, Robyn. That's gonna get like 70 goals, 100 goals even this year, Robyn.
If you're a Blackhawks fan that actually believes that, you are delusion.
Love it. I love how optimistic they get. You got one of the best prospects in the game, but it's just worst to first type thing.
Logan Cooley or Connor Bedard, who has a better first season? I think we already had that discussion. But yeah, I mean we say that, but we'll see what other people think.
Which one of them is going to have Clayton Keller and Dylan Guenther to play with? Checkmate. Clayton Keller had more points than Austin Matthews last year. Just saying. Anyway, tossing it back to you. We're overtime.
All right, yeah, we are over time. So we're all going to close things up on today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We're free and available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube and the SiriusXM radio app. If you liked us, don't forget to leave a comment, to give us a 5-star review, to just hit that like button on YouTube. Just kind of really helps us know that we're doing a good job here, and that you appreciate our work, and we appreciate you listening. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I'm personally at Robyn_Leano. Matthew Jacobson is at the AZ Sports Guy. Interact with us. Ask a question you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to how long.